Inspiration is a fleeting emotion. Discipline is a reliable system.
Nice. Nice. Well, welcome to the Indie Shelf Podcast. It is a show where we interview indie authors exclusively and only after I've read the book because it makes it way more fun. So tell us a little bit about who you are.
So high fantasy author, initially self-published. I self-published my book. 3 months later, it was acquired by a traditional press. And it was a long journey to get there. I did, the very thing that you're doing right now, 7 days a week for, at least 2 authors a night for a year straight. And
Wow.
We created this community called the Between the Pages podcast and the Between the Pages Discord. And we held a bunch of events and did a bunch of giveaways. And it was wildly time consuming because I never do anything sensibly. I always just dive in as deep as humanly possible. But it paid off. It was very much a long grind to eventually get the audience that enabled me to be acquired by a traditional press, which is still independent.
Okay. So, hey, how you doing? Walk me through that process a little bit more because I feel like a lot of indie authors, that's the goal. Some of them not. I've interviewed a couple that are like, no, I'm not interested in that. But I feel like that's what everyone's kind of striving for. So walk me through the process. People want to know about marketing. They want to know about basically the steps you took to get there and what it took.
I mean, the short of it is I was doing these interviews every night, and it was at least 2 authors, like I said, 7 nights a week. The only days off that I got was if both the people that I had scheduled for that day just called in sick, essentially, and didn't show up. That was pretty much the only days off that I got.
Forced break.
Yeah. So I was doing that probably for 6 to 8 months, and then I started to get interest of publishing professionals that wanted to engage with the show. So then it was, editors at first, and then editors turned into literary agents, and literary agents turned into publishers. So we was just kind of getting everybody within the publishing industry. Sorry, I got something in mind.
Oh, you're good.
We were getting everybody in the publishing industry on the show. And there was just at one point people that had come on the show, like different publishers and literary agents and all those things, had connected me with essentially 3 active publishers who were interested in my work. And I wound up going back and forth with all 3 of these publishers because they saw the platform, they saw the audience, they saw how active I was in the community. They saw the interest that people had in the story that I had to tell. And with all that, 3 publishing houses were interested in picking it up, and I didn't and currently don't have a literary agent. So I handled all of my contract negotiations myself, and basically the one that I'm with now, Conquest Publishing, was the one that pretty much just kept saying yes to everything that I was asking for. And they gave me no reason not to go with them. So it was interviews every night and networking and kind of forcing myself into the publishing industry.
Brute force.
Yeah, brute force. My whole goal from the start, as a lot of people know, has been to make sure that I was so loud that the publishing industry couldn't have an excuse to not know my name.
Okay. All right. And was this with the book that I read, or was this with a different book while you were doing this? This is a book. Okay. Yeah, tell us a bit about your book.
Yeah, so it's dark epic fantasy, multi-POV with a focus on female leads. My readers often say that it's Lord of the Rings if it was more fast-paced with gray morals and female leads. That's like the short of it. The longer version is a warlord wants to destroy all things. He hates the gods, he hates magic. And he thinks that if he marches on this last magical bastion called Runefall, and that he can conquer this city, then he will be able to conquer gods and goddesses and magic, and he will be able to rid the world of the cruelty of magic. And his actions drive all of our points of view into this final conflict, and all of them kind of intersect and drive the story for the other, even if they never meet.
Yeah, that was something that took me by surprise for your story. At first, I thought it was an anthology, but I got it after the third. Like, I started seeing the connections, and I realized what you were trying to do, which I thought was, one, very ambitious, and two, very interesting, because I did kind of like that anthology feeling in your world, and kind of they build off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you get the idea to do that? Why did you decide to tackle it that way?
Because I'm not smart.
No.
It was overly ambitious for my first book. Lucky enough, the readers seemed to say that it worked, and I'm glad that I kind of got lucky, and people have enjoyed the story. But it was very ambitious. The way that I describe it to a lot of people now is like, I decided to make the Avengers film before I did any of my standalones.
Yes, that is an actual very great way to describe it, because I will say it was a lot. And I had to reread passages sometimes because there was a lot going on. And granted, I think it's right that it is kind of like Lord of the Rings if it had more action and more female presence, because it had a lot of great female characters, I have to say. Why that focus on female characters?
Well, for me, it's just, it's important. So when I read books, I tend to pay attention to the characteristics that I think represent myself. And I gauge how alike I am to particular characters, and I kind of use that to, as a foil of my own personality to kind of learn things about myself.
Fair.
And I find it more difficult for people to be able to do that and to learn things about these characters and to learn things about themselves if they can't see themselves in the characters. So to me, that kind of diversity is important. So like Kyra, most people associate her to like a Norse sort of woman, like she's your white woman in the story.
Okay.
And Varelia is very much the Middle Eastern woman. Now, is there the Middle East in this fantasy world? No, of course not. So she's not speaking with a Middle Eastern accent. But there are small things that you see, like she's described as having brown skin. She always refers to her father as Baba, and like you can having brown skin. She always refers to her father as Baba, and like you can take some of those words from like real world language, and you can see that it's a bit of like Persian, Turkish influence, and that's just a way that people often refer to a paternal or maternal figure because she does the exact same thing with her mother. So I wanted to make sure that people of color had someone that they could look to and say, I see a bit of myself in this person, or that women could look at something and say, hey, I see myself in this person. And fantasy, as well as science fiction, or at least high fantasy, less so on the romanticy side of things, tends to be associated with being a male-dominated industry, genre, right? And I wanted to make sure that everyone had someone to enjoy, because you have Grumpy, right? You have your gruff kind of brooding male figure, and he's very much a self-insert for myself a lot of the time, and all of my sad boy vibes.
I can see that.
And then, there are entirely completely separate personality traits that I put in like Ishmael, who very much represents a good piece of me as well. But he was the African American, or the black representation kind of within that story. I think that if you're going to have a big fantasy world, you can't pretend that everybody's got the same skin color.
Huh. That's interesting that you mentioned that because I didn't even register that. I did register when you use language to just, you did use different languages. That gave me a little hint of it. But I thought what was interesting about your characters was that their lives were so vastly different. And I love that they came from all over the realm, if I will, and how even though their lives were so contrastingly different, they were all intertwined into the story, and like they all fed you pieces of the world building. That was my favorite dynamic with the characters, and it's one of those books where you have to read every line because every sentence is important in the sense that it gives you something new. Your book is so packed with lore, with world building. So I agree with your fans. I think everyone deserves their own book. So you better get to writing. Um,
Yeah, that's definitely been the consensus, which is why I did go back and write a prequel that's all dwarves. So it's a short story, but it is out there.
okay. How long did it take you to write this book?
It depends. If you're going for how long, it sat in my head, that would be a far longer answer. If you mean like from the moment that I actually sat down and started typing to the moment that I was finished, actively typing it was about a year.
About a year and a half.
Mhm.
How many edits?
Well, So I went through it, I did the first draft, and then I went through and I did some edits when I was a far weaker writer, and then I had a friend who kind of helped me do a pass through, kind of like a proofreading edit,
Uh-huh.
and then the uh, like head librarian of the university that I attended also did like a pass through of like proofreading. So like book one never got any like developmental sort of stuff. So
Okay.
if you count the two proofreads that it went through, technically I suppose that would be four drafts, but it wasn't like really. I tend to only do a two draft process the majority of the time. But that was whenever it was self published, and then it was out for 3 months, and then it was acquired by a traditional press, and then it was taken off the market,
Okay.
and then I rewrote the whole damn thing.
Okay. So what I
So
read is not
no,
that.
no, what you read is the traditionally published version that currently exists. The initially self published version that I did no longer exists. You can't. And that one, I went in and I redid the entire thing. I changed whole characters in the novel, and I did one edit that way, and then the publisher came in and they did a line edit, and then we did a proofread, and it was out again.
Okay. Um, Interesting. So what is, I mean, how did you, I have so many questions about this because is it better now than it was before, do you think?
Oh, Miles.
Miles. And that was because you used the editor for when you got traditionally acquired.
Well, like I said, all the big edits after it got traditionally acquired, that was me. I wanted to rewrite it.
Oh, okay. 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 So it was self
Yeah,
motivated. Did,
because
uh-huh.
History of Magic, the book that you just read,
Hmm.
represents my writing from about 5 to 6 years ago.
Oh,
So I didn't, as much as I would have loved to have reworked basically the whole story. The moment that I was acquired was the moment that I got put on deadlines, and I didn't exactly have that
okay.
same level of freedom that I could have had at one point. So I had to go in and stick with some of the things and just kind of change what I could to make it all work the way that I really wanted it to.
Hmm.
Um, so we went through and did all that, and I kind of lost track of what I was saying. What was the question?
Well, I think we're far away from the question and we're kind of like dissecting this process because you have a very interesting story. And for those of you who recently joined, you basically built yourself up by being so loud that you couldn't be ignored in the industry. And you have written this book. When you were being so loud, it was your book already out?
No.
Okay, so you were loud for 7 months and then released your book?
Yeah, whenever people first started paying attention to me, I guess, I did the same thing that I think everyone does when they first joined TikTok 2, 3 years ago, whatever it was. And I did the like follow for follow crap until I got to 1,000 followers so I could go live. Which, by the way, anybody don't do that. It's horrible for engagement. Don't do that. So I did that just so I could go live. And I went live one time and I did a reading sprint. And I was horrible the moment that anyone jumped in the chat and said something. I was just like a raccoon and everything.
Okay.
And I was talking to them. So I was like, okay, that doesn't work. So then I started reading some of the book that I was writing at the time because I was, I think, in the editing stage for The Cruelty of Magic then.
Okay.
And people started paying attention just because I was doing readings. And then the people that kept showing up for the readings were like, hey, we should make a Discord. And then we did that. And at the end of there was just a point where like probably 2-3 months into me actively trying to build a TikTok platform, I just sat back and was like, if I want to get anywhere, I have to provide value to the community. So what's the easiest way that I can provide value? Well, I'm a director for a sales company, and I've managed 2 different podcasts, and I've done interview processes for podcasting, for employment, for I don't know how many different things. So I was like, I can interview people. I'm good at sales. I'm going to be able to convince people to try an author and to give their book a chance. So I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do. So I just opened up a Google forum. I was like, hey, this is free. Anybody can submit. Anybody can sign up. And by God, did I get flooded. It was like 1,000 within like a few days. And I was like, oh.
Absolutely.
And then that's when I was like, all right, well, I guess we're doing a 2 a day for the rest of my life.
Wow. Yeah. That 2 a day is a lot, man. I could not imagine. And they were live, so there was no recording of it. And did you post them afterwards?
After a while, we did. So as you've probably found, that you can go into your TikTok live studio or whatever, and you can get your replays. And I had someone who was grabbing a lot of those replays and just uploading them as podcast episodes to Spotify, but they weren't like cleanly edited. It was like you're going to hear me struggling with my tech as soon as I open the live, and you're going to hear me complaining about something, and then the show starts. And
no, I get that. Yeah, and no, that's, I mean, I edit my shows before I post them on YouTube, and I'm a little behind on Spotify. I'm gonna admit, but no, okay, so that makes sense. So you're editing, you're doing readings, and then when do you release your book? When does that timeline starts?
I think it was like 6 to 7 months after I was like actively trying to build a TikTok platform, which like people kind of look at me sideways when I say this, which I wholly regret, by the way.
TikTok platform?
No, I hate publishing my book when I did. I like, hindsight being what it is, it worked, and I guess I shouldn't complain because I got the book out, I got the publishers that were eyeing me, and now I'm lucky enough that like I have literary agents in my phone that are just waiting for me to write the next thing whenever I go to publish my next standalone. So I have people interested in my work, and it all worked, but the stress that I put myself under to publish that book, to self-publish it the very first time, was so immense because I had convinced myself that, people are following you now, and you have to capitalize on everything immediately, otherwise the whole world's going to forget who you are. And I told myself, like, you have to rush this process, which is why I had 2 different editors do a rushed proofread that wound up missing a lot of it. And it created a lot of strain on me. It definitely also created some strain on others. I did not have a personal life whatsoever for this like time in my life. It was just one event going to the next, from work to an interview to editing this to making content. Like many people, including my family, were very frustrated at the fact that I was inaccessible for quite a long time, and I didn't need to make it as bad as I did.
Okay.
You know, that's what you learn.
Yeah.
You don't have to rush it.
It's a great lesson, actually. I feel like a lot of people need to hear that. So you released your book with all this momentum going, and then talk to me about your fandom, because I'm struggling to, or maybe I just didn't look at your show and I'm just missing context. I'm struggling to understand how you wrote a book that you later despised, in a sense of like you changed everything about it, but you gained enough following to get noticed. And then after you changed it, what happened to that fandom? I kind of want to understand that moment there.
It was all positive. Everybody was thrilled with all the changes, because the changes were, one, changing one core character and a few core elements of that character, and they made that character far more unique than they were in the initial story, and there was a heavy evolution to the prose. Once again, at this point, I was just a better writer.
Yeah.
So being able to go in and change a lot of that stuff, people were super happy with that. In that first draft, it was supposed to be third person limited, but it was written more as if it was like third person omniscient. So a lot of that perspective stuff got cleaned up,
Okay.
and I haven't met a single person that's like, man, I really wish that you would have left things the way they were. Every single person that's spoken to me about it is just like, this is far beyond what it was.
Okay. But so you had people that reread the book to validate that first. So you had people that when your book came out, self-published, they read it. And then when you got acquired by a traditional publisher, you fixed it and they reread it.
Oh yeah, they were the majority of basically every sale that I got of that initial self-published one turned around and they were all of my pre-orders.
Okay. Interesting. What do you think allowed you to have such a devoted following? What do you think it is?
That I was given to the community.
Okay.
That I was out there and that I was trying to help others, whether it was the interviews or it was the author spotlights, or just kind of giving different tips on writing and stuff like that. Like anybody that's kept up with any of my content, like the one I was doing a live last night, and there was a few people that were just like, one of the things that they continuously follow me for is because there is no gatekeeping whatsoever. Like, I get into a bookstore, I'm going to teach you to get into that bookstore. I'm going to partner with bookstores so you can get in that bookstore. I'm going to create like a Google form that you can submit to, and I'm going to do different like author spotlights to help kind of celebrate some of the content you're doing, or the booktok festival later on this August. Like, if I have information and I can help, I'm going to do that. And I think that because I've been as heavily transparent as I have been throughout this process, like wins or losses, I think more people have been kind of willing to follow that journey, because I'm not trying to sell you a product. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm happy if you buy my book. But, whenever it comes to engaging with the publishing industry, I'm not charging anyone any money. Like, the only thing that I'm asking is, maybe you click the dang follow button.
Fair. Yeah, no, and that just goes to show that that attitude takes you far, right? Because that is, incredible dedication, and like you said, a huge chunk of your time. Did you find yourself getting burnt out and that's why you stopped, or did you stop enjoying it? Like, why did you stop doing this?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. Okay.
I can go into more detail if you like.
Well, what are you doing now?
Just in general, or specific to like the indie author community, or
The just your writing, your journey as a writer.
so I just finished the first draft of the final book in the trilogy.
Nice.
Literally 36 hours ago, just finished.
Oh, you're writing on a high.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a few small projects, like short stories, one like personal essay thing, like some little competitions, an anthology I was asked to participate in, and some other things. So I'm going to take probably 2-3 weeks and focus on some pretty small writing projects and just kind of submit for some of those things.
Hmm.
And then I'll go back and I'll do my editing pass through for that final book. As soon as I get done writing that first draft, there's a certain level of separation. I'm not at the Brandon Sanderson level where I say you need to walk away for 8 to 10 weeks. I think that's but I need to breathe for like a week or two.
Yeah.
So I'm going to create some separation with some smaller writing projects. And then as far as just like writing community stuff, I mean, the BookTok Festival is obviously the big thing that I have coming up on August 24th, which is just, we're having, I think it's like 5, 6, 7 genre-based panels, so like a fantasy panel, a dark romance panel, a science fiction panel, and there's going to be a literary agent panel, a publisher panel. 2 different independent bookstores are going to come on to talk about how you can get placed in their bookstore. Barnes and Noble is going to come, and they're going to do a big thing about how to establish a good working relationship with Barnes and Noble as either a self or independently published author. So yeah, like that's kind of the big event that I'm working on, and then I have some small projects until I go back in to edit book 3, and I'll probably be editing for 2 to 3 months. I don't see it taking longer than that, and it's currently 137,000 words, 137,000 and some change, and I'll get that done in a couple of months, and I'll send that out to alpha readers. Have them give some feedback if they have anything that they think should be added to it, and we'll do that. And then basically it's going to sit until the publisher is ready to do their thing.
Okay. Well, that's good insight, and we're going to unpack that, but I want to answer some questions from the chat. So the book, this is Shawn Amick. He wrote The Cruelty of Magic, and then the next one is The Cruelty of Gods, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. And then what's the series called in general?
Cruel Origins.
Cruel Origins. So for everyone in the chat, that's who we're talking to and what we're talking about. But he has a very interesting story because he self-published and then got acquired by a traditional publisher. And he has been very active in the indie community before my time at TikTok, because I got here in February, so I didn't see your big storm, but it clearly has had its ripple effects because you have an event on August 24th, you said.
Yep.
We're going to have to get the details on that because it sounds absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it's going to be an all-day long event. Essentially, take a book fair, a writing conference,
and mash it together.
The whole thing's free, and it's all virtual on TikTok Live. So typically, so you're going to be able to direct pitch to the literary agents that are participating with the event. We have 7, 8 literary agents. Typically, that's behind a paywall. Like you got to pay $300, $400, $500 for a ticket to go to some closed door writing conference, and that's kind of the thing that I'm trying to change.
Yeah,
I'm trying to show that there are ways to do these events that are free, that are accessible, that don't have to be gate-kept even by the gatekeepers themselves.
Nice. That's powerful stuff that you're doing there. The chat is excited, and I'm sure that a lot of people are very enthused with what you're doing here. So a couple of questions. One, who can sign up, and how do they sign up? If there is time to sign up, I'm sure you have kind of selected already, since the event is in a month. So you're good. You're not accepting any new people.
Ish. So I'm not accepting any new people for panels.
Okay.
But there is another piece of this event that we're doing twice. So once at the beginning, once at the end. It's going to be the elevator sales pitch hour. So essentially, For anyone that's familiar with Mama D, she's a wonderful creator on here that's very like highly supportive independent authors. She does book mail and all sorts of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
He's going to be joining us for the booktok festival, and she's going to be hosting at least one, if not two, of the elevator sales pitch hours, where it's literally going to be like me and her up there, and just we're going to pull up one author at a time. You got like a minute to pitch your book. Where can you buy it? What's it at? And like you can just pitch it to the whole audience for free. And we're gonna do this twice. So like this whole event, it's going to be on Saturday, August 24th, and it will likely be an 8-hour long TikTok live big monster thing.
Yeah. Oh my God. So is this your first comeback after that whole 7-month? Because when did you publish this book? You published this book last year?
I published, so book one was October 2024. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Okay. And the second one?
Releases August 26th.
Oh, okay. I see the play here. You're very clever with your marketing, and I applaud you for that, because I feel like that is, it's not easy to write a good book, but like in the mountain of things you have to do as a writer, like it's almost like writing the book is the easiest part. The marketing, getting it to the right people, getting the right audience, creating a fandom, that's really where the hard work begins. And so you make it sound real easy. Exhausting. But but somewhat easy in the sense of like you're literally saying to us, contribute to the community, be kind to it, be part of it, elevate it, celebrate it, and it'll do the same back.
If you can end the day being able to define your value proposition to the community, marketing will be to you.
That's powerful stuff right there. So, seeing as you're so calculated and you are very savvy, are you a plotter or are you a pantser?
Yes.
You're a plotzer.
So it's a mix. So like book one, for instance, because this is about to change. This is about to drastically change. So book one was initially I wrote a 20-chapter outline that was thrown out by chapter 3, completely just a complete mess. But what did happen is I stuck with one piece of format, which you already kind of went through, where you were like, it felt a little bit like an anthology at first. That was the idea.
Okay.
With book, because everyone says the same thing. The moment you get to chapter 6 in book 1, everything makes sense.
Absolutely.
Because you've gone through all the POVs one time, you understand the stakes, you understand who's important, and then that first time you return back to someone, you're like, oh. And that was the point. You were supposed to have a story arc within every chapter. You were supposed to have your beginning, your climax, your fall. Like you go through your own little 3-act thing within each one of these chapters. And it's because there was going to be such a huge cast that I had one of a few options. I either needed to write it somewhat like a thriller, and you were just bouncing between so many characters every 2,000 to 3,000 words. And I was like, you're not going to care about who these people are if I'm moving you around that fast. So I have to give you a whole lot of time with these folks in order to do it. So the one piece of the structure that stuck was there's going to be these 4 different POVs that you're going through. Each one of them is going to be at least 5,000 words long. It's going to take me to the 100K, and whatever I go over, I go over. And that was the only thing that stuck. Book 2, far less structure than that. But because it was easy. Because when I started with book 1, I knew 2 things. I knew what the opening scene was going to be, and I knew the ending of the book. More importantly, I knew the ending of the trilogy when I wrote the first page of book 1.
Okay.
So as soon as I stepped into book 2, I didn't need to plot it because I know where everything's going now. And book 3 has been just pretty much the exact same. Like the closer I got to the end, the more 5,000 word days I was having.
Yeah.
Because everything was there. I'm like, oh, I'm here. I'm finally at the point. Yes, I get to end this.
Yeah, you had kind of had the finish line and you were just like working your way there.
Mhm.
So are you, so this is your first trilogy and it sounds like you're excited to be done. Why is that? Are you tired of the genre? Are you tired of the characters, the story? Are you just craving to do something new?
So very very simple. I have known the direction that I was taking in the publishing industry since like I uploaded that first TikTok. Like there
Yeah.
there were particular milestones that I had in mind for different things. So one, no, I'm absolutely not tired of the genre. If you can't tell, this whole tattoo sleeve is Lord of the Rings.
It's what?
Lord of the Rings. I'm
Oh,
obsessed
okay.
with all
Oh,
that.
you like Lord of the Rings? I don't know. I couldn't tell. Huh.
Right. So the reason that I'm excited to be done with this trilogy is because of where my next milestones lay. So at first, when I self-published the book, I self-published it with the intention of that being my springboard into traditional publishing. Now, please, nobody mistake what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that self-publishing is any less than traditional, nor am I saying that it's just a starting point. It was my starting point, and I knew that's where I was going to go, and I knew that that was going to allow me to take the next steps. The next steps were go, self-publish, prove you're worth paying attention to, get a small press. I also knew that this particular story was going to be a trilogy. From the get, I knew that's how long it was going to take, and I knew that the books were going to be fairly longer by the end in order to kind of force it into a trilogy, which is why my first draft is almost 140,000 words for book one. Sorry. After this trilogy, which book three, so book two publishes on August 26th. Fast forward, book three will release April 2026. So it's only going to be like an 8-month delay before you have the final book in the trilogy yet. By the time I hit April 2026, there's a sales number that I need to be at. I'm trending to be. And once I'm at that number, because I talk to a ton of literary agents, whether it's for interviews or just people that I've kind of collaborated with content on, be it different articles or bring them onto the podcast, or different things, or even just a bunch of people getting on the booktok festival. I've talked to agents enough to know what it is they're after. So once I have the sales, once I have the publishing history, I've already got the project. The next step in my publishing industry journey is I'm querying. I will get the literary agent for the next one. And that one, I'm not settling for anything I won't be with another small press.
I see.
It's all been proving one thing to the next to get it to where when I go to someone, it's not, I don't want to be begging.
You know what? Okay, you want to be in a position of power.
Yeah, I want to be worthy of negotiation at the least.
That's fair. That's really fair. And it's a testament to you know what you wanted and you just went for it, and I respect the hell out of that. So kudos to you. When I chose this book, I had no idea who you were. I Someone nominated you because I am scared of booktok, and if I do like open authors, I'm gonna get 1,000 people signing up, and I'm just not ready for that. But I did a TikTok exactly. And my booktok friends told me to do that, and I haven't done it because of that. Because I'm a booktok is powerful. And I did a little TikTok because I was getting stuck in my circle, and you know how TikTok you kind of get pigeonholed into a corner. So I was trying to go new lengths, and I put a TikTok out there that said, what is your favorite indie book that you've read this year that's not yours? And someone put your book into the mix, and through that I got like 70 people that signed other people up. And so I studied every single entry that I did, and you're my first batch out of that entry. So
Well, thank you.
no idea who you were, but seems like you're a pretty big deal.
I'm trying to be.
You sure are. So, a couple of fun things about your book, because I feel like we've spent so much time on your journey and your marketing. I want to talk about your book. What was the hardest scene for you to write, and what was your favorite? Because for anyone that's new to this interview, um, he had so much going on. We went everywhere. We met so many different people. We had so many different types of magic and power. And so I cannot fathom what would be your favorite and least favorite scene. Usually I'm good at guessing.
So what was the hardest scene to write? Is that what the
Yeah.
question? Well, mechanically speaking, it was that dang final battle. But it's just because, like, if you think, early on in the book that there's a lot going on, when you get to that battle, there's so much. And that was one of the things that I drastically reworked from the first draft. And it's because it bounced around too much, and it was hard to really understand what was going on. So I needed to slow things down and stick you through that one point of view, which, for reasons that we don't have to say, is difficult at that moment. And I would say that from a mechanical standpoint, that was probably the hardest thing to do, was to make sure that I was doing all the POVs justice in that moment. Now, what was, if you want to know, like, what was emotionally the hardest thing to write, it's probably it's chapter 10.
Okay.
That kind of penultimate point that you have with the dwarves.
Yes. That was insane.
Yeah, that was like, from a emotional turmoil point. That was difficult.
That was brutal. Yeah. Okay. I guess right for that one. And so what's your favorite though? What's like kind of the one that, got you writing? Because it sounds like you write in sprints. Like you can sit down and write 5,000 words in a moment. I want to know the scene that made you wrote 10,000 in one sitting.
Melrose.
Okay.
I just, if he's on page,
You're there.
Melrose.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it does seem like you I read 2 books a week. So I've been able to now develop a certain understanding between the lines of when I see an author is very motivated and very excited about specific parts of their book. Before I wouldn't have able to got that. And I did notice that for the dwarves, there was a little sprinkle, a little je ne sais quoi of extra love when they came to the screen. Why is that? I mean, I get that you see yourself in him, but like, is there something else?
I think it's probably because it's easier for me to see myself. It's probably just easier for me to see myself as a male point of view.
Okay.
For obvious reasons, right? Like, for all the most obvious reasons, it is easier for me to assume the point of view of Grunty.
Okay.
And that makes it very easy to kind of write all of those things, because a lot of the struggles and things that he kind of goes through are things that, through my own lens, that I also go through, that I feel, and that's how I would handle things a lot of the times, not always. Whenever he's met with hardship, and it's just more difficult for me to do that whenever the POV isn't someone that I 100% see myself as. And it's not that a lot of people's favorite point of view is Varelia, and in fact, my publisher thinks that Varelia is that I write the strongest. What was that?
I agree.
Oh well.
That was my favorite too. She was my favorite character. Her dynamic, the golem. That was a fun. I wanted to keep going back to that. To be honest, I could read a whole book about her.
Yeah. A lot of people feel that way. And I think that Varelia. I think that it's just the more connect. Yeah, that's the answer. The more connected to the character's pain that I am, the easier it is for me to write.
Fair enough. And so, why do you write out of your comfort zone?
Because I owe it to the audience to try.
Okay.
I think that there's a responsibility that you have as a storyteller to allow everyone to have a welcome place of a belonging in your story. If you want your stories to be enjoyed en masse, you have to allow the mass to see themselves in the story.
Okay, but I'm getting the sense now that the story comes first, the character come later. Is that true?
No, it's usually the character that comes first for me. So, and I can kind of give you a pretty good example of that with my next project, like beyond this trilogy. But like the first character that I had, um, long ago, whenever this story was first in my head, and I'm talking like 8, 9, 10 years ago, like whenever I'm still around like college, um, Kyra is Sirikath and still male at this point, and I'm writing, and Salaril is this wholly different character with wholly different mechanics and all of these things, and it never worked. It's partially because I was a horrible writer 10 years ago, but it's also just because that character never stuck. Because at the exact same time, there was one character that I did write 10 years ago in a creative writing course at the university that I attended. And that story did not make it into the book, but that character was Grunford. And I made him a very, very long time ago. And I knew that he was going to be part of that story. And I started thinking, like, who do I want to truly represent power? And it's not the warlord, it's Kyra.
Okay.
And I was like, what do when I think of a woman that should be feared, what do I think of? And Kyra is kind of how I see a lot of that. And then I wanted I wanted a strong familial bond with a character, and initially the main point of view of Varelia is actually Varys. It was gonna be the father, and he was gonna lose a daughter and stuff like that. And I was like, that seems so overdone.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't want to do that. I want this to be different. So how do I make this different? And while it wouldn't be a huge spoiler, like what happens early with Varelia and Varys and Roland and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Not the norm, that's for sure.
No, for sure. And I think you subverted expectations a lot, which I enjoyed, because it made it does feel like Lord of the Rings. And when I say that, I hate saying that, but you brought it up, so I'm using it as a communication device, because a lot of people like Lord of the Rings and they try to imitate it and they fail because there's like a Lord of the Rings provides us a world that feels real, it feels tangible, and it feels kind of like I can't know everything about this world.
Yeah.
It's like there's so much data and so much lore that I couldn't possibly catch. It has that, like, which real life does, right? You can't know every history, you can't know every tale, right? That makes it more real. And your book has that because it's so dense, and I mean it in a good way. It's so packed that it has that, and obviously it's high fantasy, and you do well the tropes. You do well. The garbs. Actually, I think there's a line in there that I was like, this was taken from somewhere, because it's like the quintessential, like, throw the arrows line that they say in every movie. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but I laughed a lot when I read that. It's like go forth and something.
Oh yeah.
I think I highlighted it, but anyway, the point is that that's how it feels like Lord of the Rings. But at the same time, it has so many cool characters that you wouldn't see in that genre that don't exist. Honestly, it does have something for everyone, and you do well. I make it feel like a diverse place. And if that diversity of thinking, of life experiences is so palpable. So I commend you for that because that's what you were trying to do, and I think you did it well.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Um, you also are very romantic in the way you describe things. Sometimes you're all business and you just describe it because you need to set the scene so you can have your scene. And then you do some things like elaborate alabaster walls towered above the highest steeple of Runefall with marble columns. And you have like this like play where you use a lot of words that make it very lyrical, and then you have moments where you're just like, yeah, and they were there and they were doing the thing. So I thought it was interesting how you balance that. I have a friend that she says that she does a poetry pass where she kind of refines those little things. You don't do that, right? You edit 4 times and then it goes out.
Yeah, so basically I edit one time for the lyrical sense of it, but like I'm lucky in the way that my writing is. I would never say that people should like copy the process that I have, because I know that a lot of people are like 5, 6, 7 drafts in. When I write 1,000 words, it's 1,000 words that's going to stay. Like my editing process adds words; it doesn't take them away.
Okay.
I go in and add detail. So I add the lyrics and I add some of the description and stuff like that. But like to your point, like I was talking to someone the other day. They're reading my book and they're like, I love how you do purple prose so often and yet you don't do it so much. Mm-hmm. And they're like, every time you do it, it's to stop and stare at something that's clearly important.
Yeah.
And whenever you don't do it, it's because it's not necessary to the story. And I think that a lot of that probably comes from, how am I going to forget his name? McCarthy. He wrote The Road. How I'm spacing on his name, but the Road is kind of like the best example that I've ever seen of that. And if you've never read it, it's this post-apocalyptic thing where his father is taking his son through the road, and it's this, some horrible events happen, and there are cannibals, and there are marauders, and there are all these bad people doing all these bad things, and it's a horrible place to have to raise a child. And this isn't a big spoiler because that's the world that you're thrown into immediately. But there's this thing that happens within the first 20 pages that I thought was wildly powerful, where something really bad happens super early, and it just shows you how horrible this world is. And the kid responds and says, "Okay," and I read that and I'm like,
"Okay,
this is really frustrating. I need you to feel something a little bit more. I need you to be bothered by the things that are happening. Like, why'd you just say okay?" And then another worse thing happens again, and the kid just says, "Okay," and you're like, dude, come on. Like, I need a little bit more character so I can get kind of bought into this. And then it's like by page 25 or 30, the third time it happens, you realize that the kid is saying okay because they've given up. And just saying okay hurts you emotionally far more than any deep description could have, because you realize that short use of language is to communicate that someone's given up.
Yeah. And
it's not always about, the big pretty words. I love Tolkien. I'm obsessed with it. I read it multiple times a year, and I love his stained window language. But the stained window language isn't, to me, the thing that always needs to be built.
Okay, this isn't part of my list, but I want to ask it anyway. Why do you love Tolkien so much?
Tolkien helped me get away from moments of my childhood that I don't like carrying. It was escapism at its finest. All of my nostalgia tends to be tied back to that world.
And so, that's interesting because sometimes when a book gets you out of a traumatic situation or a negative situation, people avoid it, but you say you read it multiple times a year?
I'm reading it right now. I have a special edition. Essentially, I call it my Bible. It's all 3. My fiance Jamie got me this gorgeous like special edition that has all of them. And I love Andy Serkis, who's the guy that plays Gollum, and he narrated the audiobooks, and I probably listen to the audiobooks 2 or 3 times a year. I pick up probably my Bible at least a couple of times a week to actually read his writing, because I idolize what he was able to do on page. Yeah, he was weak in a few things. Women, obviously, like that's an obvious flaw. And for me, if I can give a child the level of escapism that Tolkien gave me, then I'll have done it.
So you write for a child audience?
No. I'm just like, when I don't mean if someone having like that a rough life is able to kind of escape into this world, and it does the same thing that Tolkien did for me, then I'll feel better about it. This world is very much, as you've read, it's dark fantasy, right? This is very much for an adult audience, but the next one isn't necessarily going to be cozy fantasy. It's also not going to be dark fantasy. It's going to read more like The Hobbit, more like Lord of the Rings. Yeah, there'll be death, but there's not going to be a focus on the death.
Okay, yeah, no, there's some romance in here too. That was pretty well done. I mean, it's subtle romance, but there's tension, and the pool scene was kind of fun.
Yeah, all the people that like spice on booktok have told me that qualifies as steamy, not spicy.
No, yeah, it is. It's not spicy. You're right. It is steamy though, quite literally as well, actually.
Right.
You know, I'm surprised about your characters because when I finished and I read the last idolized paragraph, I don't think it's a spoiler. Do you mind if I read it out loud?
No, go ahead.
It says, in a world led by dogma, full of those eager to be pious, all you need to start a war is prophecy, and it doesn't even have to be true. And I thought that was really interesting because I'm assuming that's your theme of the book.
Yeah. So more like broadly speaking, people that have been following me know this. I'm not quiet about like my political beliefs. Most people tend to think that I'm very left-leaning liberal. In fact, that's what all my comments say whenever people decide they want to bash me. Philosophically, much like Tolkien, I'm an anarchist. I hate government. I'm distrusting of authority. I'm distrusting of anyone that wants to claim authority for themselves, that wants to kind of lord over anybody else. I don't believe in simply a trust based on title. The powers that be are often the problem, and that is very much represented in all of my writing. I will never be trusting of the system.
And yet, I find this ironic. You want to be traditionally published.
Yeah, there is a little bit of irony in that, I suppose, and it's more about what being traditionally published means for my capacity to succeed in this career, as opposed to seeking the approval of an industry. So, for instance, in many things, I'm very type A, and I like to do all the things. But I'm the director of a sales company, and you don't move up through these organizations without figuring out that you can't do everything all at once. And I know what I'm good at, and what I'm good at is writing and putting my face on camera and ranting, and that's about as good as my marketing's ever going to get. And for some reason, it continues to work. I hope it continues doing that later on down the road. But when it comes to formatting, when it comes I'm appreciative of things like developmental editing and line editing. I'm a firm believer that no one can edit their own work to a quality point that's worthwhile of putting it out there to the world. My brain tells me what's supposed to be there, not what's actually there.
Yeah, I get that.
So I need someone else to go in and edit, and I'm horrible whenever it comes to cover design and marketing and all of those sorts of things. So it's far less about me craving the acceptance of this very gate-kept industry, and it's far more about my knowledge that I know I have to have a team in order to be successful. And I don't know the people, in day-to-day life that I can just go to and, pick the perfect, Avenger team to make it happen. I'm very much aware that that team exists in the publishing industry, and maybe one day I'll be able to pull the Brandon Sanderson hat trick, and you can go into the publishing industry and you can come out with a publishing company and you can have it figured out.
Sure. And so that's so your team comes from your publishing company right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Whilst before, you interviewed so many editors and so many people in the industry. Why do you just trust in more why didn't you just pick and choose from random people that you met?
Because you have to pay all of them, and I couldn't afford to do it.
Oh, you met.
Because you have to pay all of them, and I couldn't afford to do it.
Okay. And so this company gave you they offered the service, and did they pay you up front?
Yeah. So, are you asking if I got paid like some advance when they?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
The point of going traditional publishing is not having to pay for all of those things.
Okay.
So not having to pay for my audiobook, for my editing, for my cover design, for my formatting. They help with organizing different marketing events. They connect me professionally to other folks in the industry. Things like that. And I don't have to pay anything for any of that. So it was, while I might have been able to, hand grab a bunch of people and say, you're absolutely amazing at this thing, and that would have been true, well, I couldn't afford to pay all of them.
No, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and it worked out. So let's go back. Let's rewind. And sorry, I'm just really fascinated by your whole journey because it's unique, and everyone's story is unique, but you've done things that completely took me by surprise because again, I didn't know who you were until right now in this sense, besides reading your book. So you obviously use Tolkien as your kind of Bible. Walk me through how you're different. Not that it's not clearly defined, but I want to see your thought process of because I feel like you took a lot of tropes from Tolkien to develop your magic system and kind of your creatures. Walk me through that line.
So the question is just how am I different from Tolkien?
Yes, in your world building and your magic system, because I find a lot of similarities, but then there's things that are different, but I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, so I think some of the clearest. So first is diversity is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone's seen the movies, right? I don't think we're confused.
I don't think anyone's confused now.
Now, so I'll say that just in who I try to represent in my stories, which you get a lot more of in book 2, which I'm super excited for people to read, and hopefully people like it as much as I enjoyed writing those stories. Outside of that, you mentioned the magic system. Tolkien is very much a soft magic system. For those that aren't big, huge fantasy nerds, hard fantasy says there are rules to the magic that you have to follow. Here's the rules. Soft magic says, we don't know the rules. In fact, I'm not super great at explaining how the magic works, but the magic just happened. There you go. Gandalf is the ultimate soft magic system because every now and again he does something wild. You don't understand how he's able to do it. You definitely don't understand why he hasn't been doing it up until that point. And there's a whole lot of questions that are left, why is this working this way? Or, how's the existence of the ring race and all of these things? Okay, they got corrupted, I guess. How do these things happen? And it's more defined if you read the other books outside of Lord of the Rings, but most people don't. So it's very soft. Whereas if you read something like Brandon Sanderson and you read the Mistborn series, very hard magic system. Eat this metal, get this power for this time.
Okay.
Super straightforward. Mine blends the two. So you have your hard magic system that says, here's all this elemental style magic and rune magic. And if you do this, you have to pay this cost. And often the cost is given to you right there on the page. Like, you don't even have to sit there and imagine what's going to happen to them. You figure it out fairly quickly. This is the cost for magic in this world. And then you start interacting with different things that aren't the magic systems that all of your characters are using. Like, you start to learn things about the dwarves that you're like, that's wild, because that wasn't explained as one of the like main magic archetypes. And then you start figuring out that there's this kind of like ancient thing that people didn't really understand. And then there's this giant thing that comes out in this final battle, and you're like, what the f is that? Where did that come from? And you start learning a lot more in like book 2 that a lot of the magic that you interacted with that has all of that, you do this, you pay X price, is how a lot of, we'll call them entities, view as primitive magic in this world. That's like the lowest form, yet that's what's most accessible. So you have this mix of hard magic systems paired with soft magic systems, whereas with Tolkien, you're mostly just going to get that soft magic system. As far as world building, Tolkien was very true to a whole lot of different mythology. Like, his elves aren't exactly something that like he created. A lot of that mythology existed elsewhere. His dwarves kind of existed elsewhere. His halflings 100% existed elsewhere. Like, a lot of these things existed somewhere else, and he just kind of made a couple of his own changes and built his own world and put his own cultures and put in his own languages and stuff like that. Very similar. You get elves from me, but they're not Tolkien's elves, right? They have an entirely different type of culture thing that's going on. They're not even viewed the same way in this world. There's been a whole event tied to their existence. The dwarves definitely aren't going to be like the Tolkien dwarves, because they have, like I said, there's this whole thing that you wind up finding out with them. And, you know, you have a golem and summoning magic and all of these things. And, you know, there are things like, you know, Balrogs and stuff like that in Lord of the Rings, but having any form of, like, control over any of these entities, not really a thing. But then you start to figure out, so summoning magic exists, but it's not Final Fantasy, where suddenly a Leviathan comes out of the water, and then you're just like, oh, this person can do this thing. This is cool. No, there's a reason that summoning magic exists. It's pulled from a source, and there's a cost associated to this source. Like, you're kind of taken through basically all the problems of this society. So where things are left very soft and open and left for a lot of speculation, you're taken very deep into the cost of this world.
So that's a great answer, and I think it really sets the stage for people that, I think someone added you to their TBR already.
Oh, thank you.
And someone's asking, are you a fan of the Silmarillion? Did I say that right?
Absolutely.
What is it? I don't know what it is.
So I'm writing one, essentially. So the Silmarillion is where you get all of those answers about Tolkien. So you want to know what the Balrogs are and how they're attached to Gandalf? Well, Tolkien wrote this prequel to a prequel to a prequel to a prequel that is literally his Bible. It's the story of this world's creation. Gotcha. And you go through like the first age and the second age and a lot of these historical events. It reads more like a history textbook as opposed to a fiction novel. Very much for like the hyper Tolkien fans, and yes, I am one of them.
Okay. Yeah, Middle Earth Bible. Yeah, Darian Morang is in the chat. He's a sci-fi writer. He's a fan of Tolkien as well. And I'm so glad you're here, because while I was interviewing, I was thinking of him. I was like, oh my God, he would have such a great time with this guest. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan, but I'm not. I would never. You guys are hardcore fans, and I feel like that really shows in your books. But you're definitely unique in your approach, and I think your magic system, as you just described it, is definitely evidence of that. But you play a lot with the concept of villainy, and like, I think this person's a villain, and then it changes. Like, walk me through that kind of moral. It's almost like gray morality. Like, I don't even know who to root for. I have my favorite characters, but like, there's not a clear definition of like, I need to root for this guy.
I don't want there to be. There is a lot of intentional moral ambiguity. I mean, people always say when you're trying to write a good villain, every good villain thinks they're the hero, right? I think that that's easy to say and harder to write.
Yeah.
Because whenever you have a main character and a point and a thing that they're trying to accomplish, and you pit them against someone, eventually you wind up staring at that person and saying, if this was the villain, even though they made some things that I might agree with. By the time you get to the end of the trilogy, I'm interested to know who you felt that the villain was, if there was one.
Yeah.
There are simply opposing forces, and if you happen to think that one of those opposing forces going against your favorite character makes them a villain, then go for it.
I think that's a really good, because you do play with a 3-act structure, and you nest them, and you have your book was easy. It was fun to read, but hard to read at the same time in many ways. The prose was accessible, but again, so packed. And you still managed to keep it under 400 pages, which I think is a feat on its own. Your book is like one of those books where after reading it, I'm like, that should have been 600. Like, usually that would be 650 page book, and it's a 387 page book. So that was cool. That's an interesting dynamic. But yeah, how did you, are all your books short like that?
No, so book 1 is, I think it's 118,000 words, if I remember correctly. Book 2 comes in at like 130,000 words.
Oh, okay, they get bigger.
And then book 3, like I said, this first draft just finished at 137,000. If I don't add 5 to 7,000 words to that through this next round of editing, I'll be very surprised. So that one's probably going to be over 140,000. To give you an idea, like the Fellowship of the Ring is 180,000.
Chat says they like him girthy, so I think you're in good company. Do you choreograph your fighting scenes, or do you pants them and kind of then edit it post?
Editing is where we pretend we know what we're doing.
Okay, great. Everyone answers these questions differently. So I always ask, everyone always answers it like, it's so obvious. And I'm like, no, it's not actually. Another question from the chat. What don't you like about the trad process now that you've experienced both?
I was having this conversation with somebody last night. I believe that there's a misconception about the traditional publishing industry where people think that creativity is no longer incentivized, that you are incentivized to write to market and to do all of these things. I don't agree with that take. I think that much like any other industry, the publishing industry is aligned to platforms. It has aligned itself to an insurance of success. And that success is typically tied to an existing platform. And if you have a platform, you have the freedom to be creative. And if you don't have a platform, you might not have the freedom to be creative. And that's a frustrating thing, because the inherent gap that the traditional publishing industry has is one very simple bottleneck that could be changed. I genuinely believe that it could be changed, but it's not, and it probably isn't going to be anytime soon. And that's how literary agents are paid. Literary agents do not get paid a dime when they sign you as an author. Literary agents do not get paid until you do. They collect a percentage. Typically, that percentage is going to be 15%. The problem with that is when a literary agent signs you, now we have to get everything done. We have to make sure we have the submission packet. We have to edit it. If all the effort that has to be expended, the multiple hours of labor that has to be done, that literary agent is doing that for free on the hope that your book is going to be successful. Which is why literary agents are often viewed as the gatekeepers of the industry, because they have to make a conscious choice and say, I'm willing to not be paid for this person because I believe in their success.
Interesting. So, yeah, no, that definitely changes the dynamic because basically literary agents are paid for their judgment. They're paid for their ability to see talent in its truest form.
Yep.
And so, how does a literary, you seem to know a lot about, and I think this is important, how does a literary agent start? Like, how do you gain the trust? Or do you just kind of go for it and say, I know I have good taste and I'm going to, all my books are going to be winners. Like, how does that work from their side? What is their journey, if you know?
Literary agencies often define themselves as apprentice professions,
Okay.
which just means that you start as an apprentice, you help somebody else get their stuff done, you help them with their paperwork, you see how they're doing it, you start part-time, you maintain a full-time job, or maybe you have some circumstances that allow you to not have to have a job and you can do this on the side. Very similar to how someone would be with like a real estate agent. The difference is it's far more difficult to be a literary agent than it is to be a real estate agent. And it's likely going to be a heck of a lot longer before you get paid. So it's very much just slow rolling. Most of them are going to be working part-time unless they've been in the industry for 10, 15 years, something like that. Like I know quite a few baby agents who are still, working another job, and it's midnight and they're pulling up the phone and they're reading emails and they're going through queries and they're falling asleep as they're trying to see if they're actually if they like the author that's in front of them. And it's a real struggle, which is why I tend to be a bit more sympathetic to because I know this is where the industry's bottlenecked, and I think that if more people were aware of that and they were aware of the risk that's associated to the agent, then maybe people wouldn't be as frustrated and we could all just collectively agree, hey, maybe this isn't the best system for them. We can figure something else out.
Yeah.
But that is.
Now, but let's do a philosophical exercise because clearly it was set this way for a reason. I'm not defending that reason. I don't even know if there's an actual reason, but just hypothetically, do you think that this has made better work to come out, or do you think it's actually ruining the book industry?
I don't think it's ruining it. I just think it's detrimental. It is in my opinion, it is a net negative. And I think that if agents were incentivized more to take risk, then it would be better for the publishing industry. But they're not, because they're the ones that are asked to assume the risk.
Yeah.
And that, in just about any profession, is going to prove to be very unfair.
Well, speaking of other author journeys, in a sense, what's on your TBR?
I'm currently reading Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I think that woman is a gift to this planet. And
Wow.
that her writing, I think Rena was in the chat earlier. I wholeheartedly agree with her. V.E. Schwab's writing will be taught in schools. She shows you how to break the rules correctly and respectfully, and in everything, not just grammatically in the way that she writes on the page, but in the stories that she chooses to tell and when she chooses to tell them.
She's in my TBR. I have a couple of books of her in there, and I've been doing indie only for the most of the year. I've read 30 indie books this year. And so I haven't gotten to her, but you're really selling me on she's selling experience.
I was sold on Bury Our Bones whenever I watched her doing an interview and she described it as toxic lesbian vampires. I was like, that.
Say less, ma'am.
I was like, so yes.
What have you learned about yourself through this book?
that success is not diluted if you have patience. I have become rigidly disciplined in so many things. Like a lot of people that watch my content know that I will harp about making sure that you have a daily writing goal and not coming up with some excuse to tell the world why you didn't have time today. I'm in the gym 2 hours a day. I have my daily writing goal, which at this point is basically it was 2,000 words until I finished the manuscript. Now I switched to editing and it changes it a little bit. But I have that. I have my goals whenever it comes to just fitness, nutrition. I'm not always great whenever it comes to nutrition. I could do better on that one. But I tend to be very rigid about a lot of things, even whenever it comes to just like walking the dogs and doing things at a particular time. I'm very time block oriented. And my stories have kind of perfected a lot of that for me. Like I don't stress about like, am I going to have time to get this project done, or am I going to be able to meet X deadline? Like I know what I can handle. I know how much time it's going to take. And that's why like I was able to finish the third book in my trilogy, and the BookTok Festival happens next month, and I'm not losing my mind.
That's a feat on its own for sure.
So it's taught me patience. It's taught me discipline. It's taught me that I don't need to rush things, and that's why I'm very excited for the next project that I get to write, because I haven't written the first word. I know it. I know where that story goes, start to finish. I know exactly what it's going to be about. I know around about how long it's probably going to be. I just haven't started writing it because I won't let myself work on another longer project until this one was done. Because you owe it to the readers to actually finish the book.
Absolutely.
and I'm thrilled that I get to take all the things that I've learned over the past 5 years, and I get to sit down start to finish and show the readers like, here's what all of this is given me.
No, I commend you. Yeah, I mean, these are not easy books to write. I don't think. Maybe it's because I'm not comfortable with this genre writing it. But yeah, there's ambitious books that you've written. You're gonna, at the end of it all, you're gonna be a book per year. That's pretty cool. Pretty good.
Yeah. It's I'm on an 8-month publishing schedule with the publisher right now.
Pretty good. Your book had a theme song. What would it be?
I'm so bad at that. I didn't make one of those like soundtracks or any of that stuff. Like part of me just wants to like scapegoat it and be like, just go apply the score for the Lord of the Rings movies and call it a day. But
come on, a theme song? There's not a song that like reminds you of your book?
No, I can't. My mind just doesn't work that way. I literally never think about it. I will try. Car Radio by 21 Pilots.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know that I would say that it makes sense to listen to that song while reading the book, but Car Radio tends to express a lot of my writing process. That there is a level of internal screaming that exists, and that I am very much trapped with that story, especially when I'm in my car and there's nothing I can do to kind of give myself an outlet to get it out. My creative process can be heavily tied to car radio.
I absolutely adore that. And you've just given me like a new core memory to associate with that song. That's so cool. I know the song well. I like it a lot too. And it's cathartic for me as well. So I get it. If you haven't heard it, you should listen to it so you get what we're talking about. So it seems like you wanted to write a book since you were in college, but like, are you one of those kids that has always wanted to write a book and like you're finally living your dream, or did this came after in life?
The first story that I wrote was in grade school, and I hid it in my crush's desk, and it was little like there were little stick figures that were going through a little story, and I thought that she didn't know that I was putting it in her desk, and I wrote this story for 5, 6, 7 days straight. And, I put it on when she was out to like lunch or something like that, and I sat behind it, and one day, I don't know, I was having an off day, something didn't write the story, and the time that she typically would have like checked and found that story was there. She checked, it wasn't there. She turned around and she's like, "Where's my story?" And like just as she knew, like right off the bat. So I wrote those stories whenever I was in grade school, and I did little like writing competitions for the elementary school and stuff that I was in, and it was I've always enjoyed stories. I've always been very obsessive over stories. And I had a freaking meltdown whenever I was in college, like a bad one. I was like 14 episodes deep in one sitting of Prison Break, crying in the middle of college because I just didn't understand what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I was staring at that screen, and I was like, maybe acknowledge that you're 14 episodes deep and you haven't moved for like 10 hours because you're in love with stories. And I was like, okay, I think it's time to start actually trying to see if I can make writing a living as opposed to a hobby. So that's whenever I decided I wanted to switch my major. I switched it to English, and I started writing my first book. And at the time, I had read Stephen King's On Writing and listened to his advice that he writes 2,000 words a day. So in my head, I said, you have to write 2,000 words a day, or you're not a writer. Not true, but that's what I did at the time. So I wrote 2,000 words a day until I completed my first novel. It was never published. It'll never be published. I hope I successfully burned that hard drive. The world will never see that thing.
Not bad, huh?
But I proved to myself that I could write it.
Yes. And I think that's really what your first book is about. I think is proving to yourself that you can do it. Because it's a very daunting task. And daunting in like the best way possible, right? Maybe daunting is not the best word, but first book is to prove to yourself that you can do it for sure.
Yeah. No, it was worth it. It was like a thriller crime thing. It was not me at all. I was really mad at some political events at the time, and I wrote a story about it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. What is one piece of advice that you would give someone that's just starting out?
One of two things, but they're the same piece of advice, just said differently. One, have a daily writing goal and make sure that you are unwilling to fail at that goal. Two, just finish the damn book. There's no amount of marketing, there's no amount of industry savvy, there's no amount of research that you're going to do that's going to get you published quicker than writing the damn book.
That's the truer words have not been uttered. Now, I always ask people to give you a one-liner. It could be whatever you want. It could be like a life philosophy. It could be a quote from your book, but just one line that encompasses you.
Inspiration is a fleeting emotion. Discipline is a reliable system.
Nice. Ooh, we have a question in the chat. In regards to your outspoken content, how do you deal with naysayers and backlash? Ooh, that's a good question.
Did you click on my profile? Did you see that as I said, I've never been quiet. Whenever I think that Trump's a piece of shit, I make sure the world knows that. But as I get hate daily, I get spammed with just the most egregious right-wing bots on threads every day. I have a host of comments that are in the review comments section of my post that I have to go through, and people call me all sorts of names and whatever. And one thing that you'll see if you scroll through my content is you're never going to see me responding to it. and one post that you will see constantly from me, especially on Threads, is let hate die in obscurity. It doesn't do anything for me. In fact, the majority of the hate that I get, once every couple of days, me and Jamie will sit down on the couch and we'll scroll through the comments and we'll laugh, and I'll go about my day. Right? Most people that are that upset, that are so visceral that they're gonna get into your comments, it's about them. It's not about you. Just let it die. Move on.
I think that's good advice, because I feel like when you look at it, when you respond to it, you amplify it, and then they got what they want.
Yeah, that's all people are looking for. They're rage baiting. They're just trying to get their own views up for their own particular audience that supports that kind of stuff. And you're not going to get it from me. If I put out something and, people will stitch my video when they disagree, and they'll go crazy and they'll try to make a whole train of getting frustrated at whatever I had to say. And it never goes anywhere. That one video, 2 videos, 3 videos, I'll click on the profile and I'll be like, well, those 16 views got you far, didn't they?
So are you a subscriber to There's No Such Thing as Bad Publicity?
Oh, there's definitely no such thing as bad publicity. That's a fact.
Okay.
Like you might be dragged, but whenever you get dragged, one of 2 things is going to happen. The opposing view that is in support of that thing will support you stronger than ever. And the audience that already supported you will be emboldened by the new people coming in trying to cause you issues. Like, there are a few examples that I could point out recently on booktok, but I don't think I'm going to point out any that any of you are probably unaware of, right? You've all seen the exact same drama that I have. And every time you see one of those events, it's pretty much manufactured, just about every time. And the hate that people get from those events always equates to more support than it did anger.
That's crazy. You have a very unique perspective in booktok. How long have you been around? Because I started in February, so I'm new.
2 years. 2 years. My fiance is telling me 2 years.
2 years. Okay. Oh, hi, fiance. And so have you? Oh, hey, she's here.
Yeah, we actually met on booktok. It was a whole event, and I had people trying to guess who my booktok wife was going to be, and people were taking bets, and there was a whole 10 episode long thing of who's my booktok wife. She joined my writing critique circle community thing, and she was part of my Discord server at the time. And I hadn't met her, I hadn't talked to her before. We'd never even shared a message, and I hopped in, and she was in a voice chat doing some readings, and I thought she had the most gorgeous voice. And I was compelled, and I was like, whatever, I'm shooting my shot. We'll see how this goes. Shot her a message, and everything kind of took off from there. As a side note, she's now a narrator. I'm the first person that fell in love with her voice, so y'all don't get to take that from me.
That is adorable. That is insane. That is so cute. I mean, wow. I don't even know what to say. That should be a book. Absolutely. I think you guys are going to have to loan out your life story to some of my romance writers. I'm sure they'll be glad to write that up for y'all. That's so cute. And so were you even in the same city?
No, I was in West Virginia. She was in Pennsylvania.
Okay, that's not that bad. Okay.
No, I'm in Fairmont, West Virginia. She was in Pittsburgh at the time. It was about an hour and a half away.
Oh my God, that is so cute. I love it. And then you guys think, okay, sorry, but now you owe me more. You don't owe me anything, but but okay, give me more. I need to know more. So you guys chatted for a while, then you decided to meet in person, and y'all convinced each other you were definitely not serial unalivers, and met in person.
He still hasn't proven that about me. Just saying, I am writing a dark romance, so I could use this.
Oh my God, hit me up. I love dark romance.
It's booktok. Who doesn't?
Do you read dark romance?
I have read very, very little dark romance. I think Lights Out is phenomenal.
Oh, Lights Out is incredible. It is so good. Did you listen to Lights Out or did you read Lights Out?
I've listened to pieces of Lights Out. I'm not all the way through the book.
Okay, Mama, what are you saying? Did you listen or did you read?
I'm doing both because I want to learn. But to be clear, he came up to me while I was writing my sci-fi dystopian. He was like, I'm not that into dark romance. Sometimes I think it's ridiculous, but this man's voice. And then he made me listen. So.
Wow.
I took Lights Out to her.
Yes.
Whoa, girl, marry this man.
I plan on it.
She has the ring.
Oh my goodness. Do you have something published? I think Crowd is requesting I interview you next.
I'm not published, but if you'd like to interview me as a narrator.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Okay. Well, you know my stuff, so send it to her. Sorry, this got this got sidetracked. But that's the cutest story ever. Wow. I can't believe booktok made a marriage. I'm sure there's I don't know if there's a bunch of stories like that, but that's really awesome, you guys. You really, looking back now, booktok changed your life.
Yeah.
Like this space here that we're all carving a little bit of is the reason your life is so cool right now.
Yeah, no, it's the reason I met the woman I'm going to marry. It's the reason that I got into with the traditional publisher that I'm with now. It's the reason that I've made all the industry connections that I have. It's the reason that I've improved in all of these things.
That's incredible. See, guys, booktok changes lives. This is great. I want to keep talking to both of you, but I ran out of questions and we're almost at time. So give me a shameless plug. What's happening? Where are you? Where can we find you? What's coming next?
Just click the profile. You can just click follow there. So book 1 is currently free on Kindle Unlimited if you guys have that. If you don't, the ebook's like, I don't know, $2-3, something cheap. If you can't afford it and you're willing to leave a review, shoot me a message. I got you. I'm not super stressed out about profit. Book 2 is available for pre-order. Once again, not super stressed out about profit. You can pre-order the book for 99 cents right now. And ARC reads, if that's your thing, are currently available. Those are free. Just link in my bio, and you can go download it. Once again, please just go leave a review if you do that. The book releases on August 26th. The booktok festival that we talked a little bit about will be on August 24th, which is that Sunday. I'm pretty sure it's that Sunday. And then for any of you that happen to live anywhere near West Virginia, I'm having a really big book launch party for book 2 on August 30th with the Barnes & Noble in Morgantown, West Virginia.
Cool. Oh my God, this has been incredible. I didn't know who you were. I didn't know. I never go into an interview knowing what to expect. I feel like it makes me a better interviewer. But wow, what a journey. What a cute story. Incredible. Just wow. I mean, I can't wait for you to blow up and be like, yeah, I interviewed him when he was in shorts on his kitchen table and his fiance popped in the back. So that's amazing. Congrats on all your success. You have at least 10 more people, my gang that always comes to my shows. Thank you guys. Love you so much. Rooting for you. So you have 10 more people rooting for you. And thank you so much for humoring me. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for inviting me. I'm usually on the opposite side of this table, so it's nice to be interviewed for once.
How did it feel? Now my podcaster is coming in. I want to know more. Give me advice. How was it?
No, I think you did. I think you did a great job. Don't change anything. You kept it organic, and then whenever you ran into some pauses, you looked over to your standard list of questions. They saved you. You kept going. Just keep doing that.
Okay. Thank you so much. No, this was great, and I appreciate you, and I'm glad you enjoyed the interview. It's always funner when you read the book.
No, I do greatly appreciate that. That's one thing that 2 interviews a week, 7 days a week. I was not able to do, and that definitely made this a lot more of a fun experience for me.
Well, and I'm glad I had an audience over there that I didn't see. I didn't expect that. So I hope you liked it too. Thanks so much, you guys. Have a great night.